starting 2 a week. We're okay. So, how's our sound, Richard? Billy, how long do I have with you? The pleasure of your company.
Oh, what do you need?
Well, typically about 45 minutes or so, 3 breaks. So with your music and all that, it's really, it's probably more like 35 minutes together. But
Yeah, that's
do
fine.
that. Can we go up to let's say 4
We could do-
o'clock or so? Because we're starting late.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. And if I'm not keeping it interesting, just say, Jeremiah, I'm done with this. I got better things to do. No, it really is nice to have you back, and I had so much fun. I hear you, Dr. D. What you need? Let's do it. Billy, you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's do it. You're born ready.
That's right.
Welcome to the Jeremiah Show. Two legends in the music industry, Larry Chance and Billy Vera, earlier this year in September, in fact, announced their rendition and the release of their rendition of the timely classic, Stand By Me. Larry Chance is best known as the lead singer of the Earls, famous for their early 60s doo-wop classics like Remember Then, Life is But a Dream, and I Believe, a song that was dedicated to a former group member who was sadly killed while serving in the armed forces. And likewise, Grammy winner Billy Vera is best remembered for his 1987 #1 smash, At This Moment, the heartbreak hit song that was also featured on the TV sitcom Family Ties. Now, Family Ties, I don't want to get off track here, but Family Ties was my favorite show, and I used to try to stay up late and watch it every week. I just love Family Ties, and I remember the song well for many reasons that I will mention here in a moment. Billy Vera is also known for Storybook Children, the song and duet that he recorded with gospel singer Judy Clay. And if you remember our interview with Billy about 70 shows back, he told the story, which was just so incredible. Must have just been an incredible evening. And it was the first interracial duo to grace the stage of Harlem's Apollo Theater in 1968. It's an event that is still remembered by the music community to this very day. Billy Vera is our very special guest today. Billy's musical career spans the past 4 decades and many different musical genres, from R&B to soul, from country to rock and roll. Often compared to the vocal stylings of the great blues singers, he remains one of the most respected and the greatest vocalists of our time. So today, Santa Barbara is where I sit at the studios here, the radio studios, and it's a cold, blustery winter day here in Santa Barbara. Our little Spanish town welcomes the wet drops of rain on our red-tiled rooftops. It's been a while since we've had a good rain. Today is one of those days. High above me, the dark skies can't seem to decide if they want to empty their bellies on me or hold their water. On my way to the studio, wiper blades furiously swatting the raindrops away. The thought of spending the next hour with the great Billy Vera and listening to some music with him is a thought that warms me. Billy Vera was on the show last year. He was navigating the new world, a world just barely opening up again to shared life with each other, and 2 years without any live music performances that included audiences. It was a strange time, and it feels like a decade ago, but it was only last year. And on that show, we got to know Billy, the artist, the man. And this was our very first time with Billy. So it's a great memory for me. That was episode 430, if you'd like to go back and listen. He came back, which is so nice because it's hard to get to know someone in just 1 hour. especially someone like Billy. He's multifaceted, multi-talented. An hour is not enough. Always the storyteller, always the performer, and an ultimate gentleman. Spending the hour with Billy was such a pleasure. Again, I'm looking forward to another chance and another hour with Billy today. Listen to this important full name. I love Billy. Billy Vera was born William Patrick McCord on May 28th, 1944. This date gave me pause because this was barely 1 year earlier than my father's birthday, who's passed sadly, but he was born in May 1945. I wonder if my dad and Billy liked some of the same music artists growing up in the same time. Billy has been a professional singer-songwriter since the 1960s, and when I think about this fact, I realize that Billy has seen music evolve and witnessed the birth of rock. He lived through the tail end of the big bands, jazz, swooners, and crooners of my grandparents' age, from folk music to the exciting time of the electric guitar. He's witnessed Elvis and the Beatles debut to the world. He's been witness to that craze. He's seen disco, metal, 80s pop, 90s grunge. Billy has been a player, a contender, a hit maker, as a songwriter for some of the biggest names in music, like Barbara Lewis, Fats Domino, the Shirelles, Ricky Nelson, Bonnie Raitt, Lou Rawls. The list goes on and on. He has a Grammy. He has seen the other side too, the business of making music. I wonder what Billy thinks of the music business today, how easy it is for a new artist to record in their closet, to engineer and mix a single on their laptop, and market themselves on Instagram and TikTok. It's changed quite a bit, the music business. So let's find out. I'd like to invite you to get warm and cozy and join Billy Vera and I as we spin some vinyl together. Welcome back, Billy.
Great to be back, Jeremiah. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's such a pleasure, and a nice rainy day like this together. The music that you sent me, I want to point out that you handpicked every song that is played in this episode, and I cannot wait to listen to it with you and talk about the music. Some of the best music. These are all, most of these songs that you sent are markers for me, milestones in different periods of my life. Your big hit was, I went to 3 proms in high school. I was invited by the senior homecoming queen. LaDonna was her name, I remember. When I was only a sophomore, I went to the prom, and your song was the song that we all couldn't wait to come on so that we could get a little closer and dance.
Was that in Santa Barbara then?
No, this was up in Priest River, Idaho.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we were talking off air, and Billy, it's raining where you're at as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're in Los Angeles. Before we go into our talk here, I was speaking to someone last night, an old friend of yours, and she said, you got to ask Billy this for me. She said, bring up just the name, April Blackwood Music on 1650 Broadway in New York City.
That was a publishing company owned by Columbia Records, CBS Network, where I, right after my Ricky Nelson record, which was the first song, by the way, I ever took to a publisher, and talk about beginner's luck. In those days, it was a cottage industry, music. And so if you had one little hit record by a Ricky Nelson, everybody on Broadway knew who you were. Mm. And you could knock on doors and people would actually see you. They all had pianos in their offices, and you could play your songs for them. So I did, and this April Blackwood Music was a man named Jerry Teifer, was the head of it, and he said, "Look, we got an empty office here. You go in there and you write, and we'll give you $75 a week," which is an advance against royalties.
Okay. How much is that in today's dollar? Do you know?
It's probably about probably a good 6 or 7 times that. But
Right.
there was a fellow there named Chip Taylor, who you know from writing Wild Thing and Angel of the Morning. And he was 4 years ahead of me, and he also went to the same high school I went to. And so Jerry said, I'm going to put you with Chip. He said, you're young and you still need a little seasoning. So the first song that Chip and I wrote together became a hit by Barbara Lewis, Make Me Belong to You. And we, in those days, if you had a hit record with your song, you got cover records. And we must have had about 15 or 20 covers all around the world in different languages. I think I have it in Italian and Spanish and French and all these different languages. So that was very cool. And then as a result of that, we got to meet Jerry Wexler, who was the big cheese at Atlantic Records, which was my favorite record company.
Okay.
That's who Barbara Lewis recorded for. We were invited to the session. And after that, we said, let's write a duet. Maybe we'll get a couple of Atlantic artists. Now that we have entree to Wexler, we can, Jerry Teifer will send us up there and say, my boy's got a song for you. So we go up, we made a demo. In those days, you made a demonstration record with just some girl, some local girl, and me. And we played it for Wexler, and he pounded his fist on the desk and he said, man, that's a smash.
Oh,
Get rid of the girl and I'll record you on Atlantic Records. So I had to find a girl. But as luck would have it, my band and I were a house band at this great nightclub. To this day, one of the best clubs I ever worked at. It was right on the border of Connecticut and Westchester County in New York. And on weekends, we'd get hit record acts, one on Friday and one on Saturday. And one of the acts that came up there rather often was Patti LaBelle and the Bluebells, which was a great act. Mm-hmm. They were also very inexpensive act. They would come up from Philadelphia. It's a 3-hour drive for $350, less 10% commission to their agent. They would come up in a car, their manager, his wife, and the 4 girls, and their little crinoline gowns in the trunk. And of course, they would drive home that night because they couldn't afford it at that price to stay over in a hotel. Anyway, I became friendly with them. We had a very good band that could read music, which was unusual. Most club bands were terrible. And the Patti, I remember telling us that there's only 2 bands in the whole Northeast that can play our music properly, you and this band from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. So there was a girl in the group named Nona Hendricks, and she had a deeper voice than Patti, and I thought that her voice might blend well with mine. So I called her up. You want to make a record with me? I'm going to be on Atlantic. You're on Atlantic, so there's no contractual problems. She said, yeah, I'd love to. So we recorded the song with her. And then their manager got into the act, and he said, well, if Billy and Nona have a hit, the group might break up, and blah, blah, blah. So then we had to audition about 20 more girls. And they all sounded like they should be singing Stephen Sondheim songs. They were just wrong for the song. And at the last minute, Wexler called up. He said, listen, we got this girl, Judy Clay. She's a cousin of Dionne Warwick. And she's got a great voice. Why don't you audition her? So Judy comes up to the office at April Blackwood. And she looked like she was about 14 months pregnant. And she had a chip on her shoulder the size of Wyoming. And, because first of all, everybody in the family had some success. Dionne Warwick, Dee Dee Warwick, her sister, the aunt, Cissy Houston, and Judy's sister was a member of the Sweet Inspirations, Judy's sister Sylvia. And Judy had made records but hadn't had a hit yet. So she had a bit of an attitude, but she sang great. And after she left, they said, well, she sings great, but you think you can handle that attitude? I said, well, I got a sister like that. I think I can handle that. So Judy and I ended up becoming great friends until the day she died. Her son, who she was pregnant with at the time we met, he's a friend of mine still, Leo. And that was pretty much it. We recorded the song. Jerry Wexler added us violins to it, our demo.
Beautiful.
And the record became a hit record, and you know the rest of it. We played the Apollo and became very popular up there.
Yeah, we're actually going to play this as we go to break here in a moment. I'm going to play a little extended. It's just such a beautiful song. You guys are so great together. To go back to that where we started out, that question, it was the person that wanted me to say hello to you after she hasn't talked to you for years, Cheryl Furstein.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, from
she was a secretary. She was Tony Orlando's secretary. Blackwood. In fact, strangely enough, Larry, Chance, and I were just on Tony's radio show back in New York.
She's actually calling me right now to be, look how good the coincidence.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Well, I'm glad. I said, he'll remember you. And she said, well, maybe you better ask him on break. Just in case he doesn't. Well,
no,
we're going to talk.
Very well.
Yeah. She's so great. She's actually in Florida on the East Coast right now. The big storm that's hitting the East Coast is on its way in. So
she was a very nice girl. I remember her very well.
Oh, great. Well, we're going to listen to Storybook Children together. I kind of feel like, Billy, you know what I did? I also searched online to see if I could find most of these on vinyl, like a vinyl recording.
Ooh.
Recording. So I just felt like you and I together, like if we were in the same room, and we are basically, just listening to some of your great music and sharing it with the listeners, and then the stories behind the song. Is there anything more you can tell me about Storybook Children and creating
the song itself? Chip came up with the title.
What does it refer to? I mean,
well, it wasn't an interracial song per se. It was more of a song that, you know, one of the people was married and they were in love, but they couldn't be like Storybook Children.
Right.
So it really didn't matter what the race of the two singers were, but we wanted the sound, the soul
like
sound.
A Romeo and Juliet a little bit. And
yeah. And it actually helped us because when we, you know, in those days, you didn't get to make an album unless you had a hit single. And of course, it was no cost to the record company because your hit single would pay for the album. And if your follow-up single wasn't a hit, well, so what? You know, there was no great loss. But anyway, they had a picture of us on the cover, which was kind of difficult for the poor photographer to light because Judy was rather dark and I was about as white as you can get. And the lighting was difficult for them, I remember, to try to get both of us to look like we were still in the same room.
I think it's I looked at the cover for quite a while. I was actually going to try to describe it but then I just thought, you know, it's just, you need to look it up on your own. It reminds me of those old album covers and the lighting and I just thought the shot of the two of you, you know, the expressions I thought was really.
It's just your basic, your basic portrait, you know, of two people.
Yeah. What do you remember about the recording that maybe isn't out there and talked about too much? You know, something behind the scenes how was that session? How was that?
Well, the first session was with me and Nona. So we kept my vocal from that because we were on separate microphones. And so when we brought in Judy, all we had to do was add her voice to what was there. Originally, we heard it as a sort of a Southern record with horns, a horn background, but Jerry Wexler didn't like the horn arrangement. So he took those off. And at the end, as it turned out, it was at the end of a Patti LaBelle and the Bluebell session. that he had the string players there already. So he just did what they used to call a split session. He put the strings on our record at the end of the Patti LaBelle session. In fact, Judy's passed away. A couple of years ago, these guys did a documentary about me, and I managed to get a hold of Nona, and we filmed her, an interview with her against the East River in New York, which is a lovely background. And she had some nice things to say, about it. We had some pretty cool people. And the documentary is called just Harlem to Hollywood, and it's on Amazon Prime.
Great title. In fact, we're showing it here on the YouTube video. We're putting your cover up.
Oh, cool.
We're putting the cover up for the book. And we're going to talk about the documentary when we get back.
Oh, there's the book.
Yeah, there's the book I love that, Harlem to Hollywood. That's a great title. Billy Vera is our special guest today. I want you to go to billyvera.com and see what Billy's up to. He's always up to something. Your website and your what you put out kind of makes me a little bit tired, Billy. You don't slow down much, do you? Go check him out on Instagram and follow him as I am at Billy Vera. I'm going to spell it for you. Billy, Billy, Vera, Vera. On Twitter at Billy Beater. On Facebook at Billy.Vera. And the documentary and the memoir, Harlem to Hollywood, is available now. I found it on Amazon Prime, and I'm sure you can find it in a bunch of other places. We'll be right back with the great Billy Vera, billyvera.com. And when we go to break here, we're going to talk about the song we've been talking about together here. And you guys got the inside scoop. It's Storybook Children, Billy Vera and Judy Clay. We'll be right back. Thanks, Dr. D. I like hearing your voice in my ear. Richard and I are in different studios today. Usually we're in the same room, but he's mad at me, so he put me in this back room.
We had some nice covers on Storybook Children, too, one of which was on a gold album.
Give me 1 second, Billy. What'd you say, Richard?
Texting, is that working?
Oh, that's perfect. That's perfect. I'll make sure Richard's texting me. So if you see me typing, I'm just writing Richard back, letting me know when I need a break. Billy, do you got a story for us? Should we do it on air?
Sure.
Okay, let's come back. And then I want to talk about the next song we play when you can't hear it, but coming back right now is we're playing, let me see, Room with a View, Lou Rawls. Okay, so I'll come back. Just whenever you're ready, Richard.
All right, here we go. In 3, 2, 1, you're live.
Billy Vera is on the Jeremiah Show today. Wow, what an honor. An honor to have Billy Vera back on the show. Billy, you were telling a story when we went to commercial break, and I'd like you to tell it so that all the listeners can hear it, not just me being selfish, just you and I alone here hearing all these great stories. Please pick up where you were at.
Well, it's just a short little aside. We were talking about cover records before, and there were several on Storybook Children. The bestseller of which was on a gold album by Nancy Sinatra and Lee Hazelwood, who was her producer.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was from a fiscal point of view, that was pretty cool. But they got to do it on Ed Sullivan, and we didn't.
Did you get a royalty though? Do you still get royalty checks? Hopefully.
Oh, sure.
Now, you mentioned at the beginning, Ricky Nelson, and you walked in, and the doors were opening, and you started making money. Was there a struggle at all, or did you go right into, pretty much? It sounds like success followed your talent right away, or found your talent.
I was able to eke out a living, because I was playing with the band.
Mm-hmm.
In those days, about 4 nights a week. So I did that, and then whatever advance, every 6 months they'd give you a little raise. at April Blackwood. Like I said, I started out with $75 a week. Yeah. And so, you know, the gigs, the band gigs would pay between, if it was a weekend, you'd make about $25 a piece. And if it was a weeknight, you'd get about $15 a night. So you could make a living in those days like that, you know. I mean, my first apartment, I was married briefly around that time, and my first apartment was a nice apartment. It was $140 a month. You know?
Yeah, so that's what you work 1 week and you pay your rent.
Yeah. Well, and that was really the way that it was structured. You know, finances were structured in those days.
Well, now people work 6 weeks and they pay 1 month's rent.
Yeah, I know.
We came back with this, and it's still playing right now in the background. A Room with a View, Lou Rawls. Can you tell us about that song?
Sure.
The creation and the collaboration.
I wrote that with the great blues man Lowell Fulson, who you may remember. He wrote a song and recorded a song called Tramp.
Yes.
So it was suggested by a mutual friend, you know, that he and I write together. So I went down to his house, and we wrote the song while we were watching General Hospital with the sound turned off in about 20 minutes. And Lowell had an idea. He said, there's this band up in New England called Room Full of Blues. He said, maybe if we write a song by that title, they'll record it. So we wrote it. And then I went home, and I lived in a little apartment at the time, one of those little garden apartments in the second floor.
$146 a month?
This one now is about $650 a month. This was in the mid 80s.
Going up.
Yeah. But across the little courtyard there lived a beautiful actress. Of course, everywhere you turn your head, there's a beautiful actress in LA. Anyway, she was coming out of the shower, and she's walking down the hallway in her apartment. I could see everything, literally everything.
All the windows are open.
Yeah. And I said, wow, I got a room with a view of the blues. and a light bulb goes off in my head. And I said, I called up Lowell. I said, we got to change the title of this song. And he liked it. So we did it. And the first recording was by a great singer from New Orleans named Johnny Adams. They call him the Tan Canary. And then, and I used to do it with the band.
That's Trump's middle name.
Yes. And then Eric Burden heard it, and he was going to do a song on what's his name, the band leader from Letterman, Paul Schaefer, made an album, and so he brought on some name guys, and Eric Burden was one of them, and Eric Burden sang Room with a View. So then my friend and I got a job producing Lou Rawls. Blue Note Records signed him, and his career was in the doldrums at the time. He had been making these, what I call Vegas disco albums, just terrible albums that didn't sell. And Bruce Lundvall, who was the head of Blue Note, said, look, just take him back to his roots. You know, the kind of music that Lou did originally, that people first loved him for, you know, jazz, blues. Mm-hmm. So we did that. We took him to New York. We used the best musicians in New York, Richard T., Cornell Dupree, you know, Stanley Turrentine, George Benson, all these great people.
Wow.
And he recorded 7 of my songs, and one of which was Room with a View, which has gone on to become a sort of a modern day blues standard with
it really is.
Recorded by people you never heard of as well as Lou Rawls.
Billy, when you were talking about Lou Rawls, his career wasn't that hot at that moment. But now when you say his name, he's like, you know, everybody knows Lou Rawls, and he's had such a great body of work.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, the question just popped into my head, that it must be interesting as being an artist such as yourself, spanning all these decades and all these hits and writing hit after hit for for not only television, film, but all these great artists. They're not always known or as popular or as well known as they are now. So, right. So you meet them at different stages in life, they're not always at the top of their career. I would think when I look at the great work that you've done with these people, and I recognize these names, they were always Dolly Parton. They were always Bonnie Raitt.
Yeah.
Were they when you met them sometimes?
Well, we met, as I said, Lou at a downtime in his career, but we took him to #1 on the jazz charts.
Mm.
And the next 2 albums were also top 5 albums. And then he left the label. And several years later, I got a phone call from his manager, David Brokaw. He said, I can't get Lou a record deal. I said, what? You can't get Lou Rawls a record deal? The guy's a big star. He said, I know, nobody wants him. They think he's too old, blah, blah, blah. Got any ideas? So I said, well, I'm not above using a gimmick. How about Old Brown Eyes sings Old Blue Eyes?
Mm.
Do an album of all Sinatra songs. So he said, that's a great idea. And so I was doing, I do a lot of reissue work, catalog work. And I was doing reissues for an old jazz label called Savoy Records. And I hit them up, and they went for it. And so I did the album for Savoy, and it stayed on the charts for like 6 months. It was the last album he ever made. Sadly, he passed away, a couple of years later. But so we had a good run with Lou, I must say.
So you're one of these creative minds that not only creates the music, hears the music, produces and packages the music, but you also see others, and you market. You can market and see. It almost sounds like you can see ahead into the future a little bit, what they need, maybe what might work for them, but not just a music artist. You're an actor. You're a historian for music. As you say, you catalog old music, and then you write, and it's just there's a lot of levels to you, isn't there?
Well, it goes back to something my sister said to me a long time ago. She said, you do a lot of things well. You should rather than concentrate on one thing. She said, you should do everything that you do, because one year this one will do well, and the next year that one will do well, so that you'll always be almost guaranteed to be able to make a decent living that way.
Yeah.
And I figured out that the age of specialization was over in show business, and I think I was right, because I've always been able to make a decent living, especially since after I came out here to California.
You've mentioned your sister a couple times now so far. What is her name?
Her name was Kathy, or later Kat with a K, McCord. And she was a wonderful singer, and I taught her how to write songs, and she became a very good writer. She didn't have the success that her talent would have predicted.
Mm.
Unfortunately, everybody wanted to help her. She was a good-looking girl. She had everything. But it's just some people it just doesn't click, and she was one of those, sad to say.
It sounds like you had a really great relationship, though, really close, and offered each other great advice.
Well, it was
probably nobody else could for you, right? For each other.
Well, my mother gave me great advice. One of the things she said was, show business is a business of peaks and valleys. So, one year you'll make a bundle, next year you'll make nothing. So she said, always live below your means, which was just the best advice I ever got in my life.
That's good advice. I wish she would have given me that advice. My mom does that too, but I just don't listen.
Yeah. Well,
Well,
she was in show business, my mother. She was
good advice.
background singer on the Perry Como show and on Perry Como's hit records and stuff. So
Mhm.
she had been around the block quite a bit.
I want to talk about Larry Chance and your 60 plus years of friendship and the new project you're working on when you get back. Billy, before we do though, would you mind? We're going to go to break right now. We're hanging out with Billy Vera on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, listening to some vinyl. I found all vinyl recordings here that we're playing. We're listening. This is Dolly Parton. I don't know if you can sum her up and before break here quickly. But the song is "I Really Got the Feeling" by Dolly Parton. Do you want to give us a little teaser on that before we go to break?
Sure. Well, as of a day or two ago, Dolly was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Oh, I didn't see that. I didn't hear
Yeah,
that.
big
Wow.
deal. Big
Well,
deal.
about time. Good for her. Congratulations.
About time. And I really got the feeling there's a kind of a longish story about how the song eventually got to her. But I will say,
You want to tell it right after break? We'll just take the break
yeah,
and you come back. I
I'll
don't want you
leave,
to. I don't
I'll
want you
leave,
to censor anything.
I'll leave them with this. It was my first #1 record as a songwriter.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. That's not on your Wikipedia, I don't think, is it, Billy? All right, Billy Vera, the great, I hope I'm not embarrassing you, but the great Billy Vera, billyvera.com. Check him out on Instagram and follow him on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. On Instagram at Billy Vera, on Twitter at Billy Beater, on Facebook at billy.vera. And if I read those too quickly, just go to billyvera.com. He's got a great website. You can follow him and click on all his different social media sites. He's also got a show coming up in December, it looks like, right, Billy? You've got Billy Vera and his big band introducing his new hit, Stand By Me, which we're going to premiere in its entirety at the end of the show, so stay tuned.
Very cool.
You can see Billy Vera and his big band Friday, December 2nd at 8 p.m., doors at 6:30 p.m. And this is at Feinstein's and Vitello's on 4349 Towanga Avenue in Studio City, California. Tickets are $25 to $45. What a bargain. If everybody goes, Billy can pay his rent. And because it's gone up, Billy Vera and his big band introducing their new hit again. Stand By Me, see him live at Feinstein and Vitello's. We'll be right back after this quick break. Cool. All right. I'll set you up. We're going to talk about Dolly, right? When we get back, Billy?
Sure.
Okay. Thank you again so much for your time. We've got, we're getting close to 4. I better hurry it up. We're not going to be able to get through all your songs and all my questions.
I should talk faster.
No. It's the way we do it. The way you tell the story is the most interesting. It's hard to be on a clock. I don't like to be on a clock. I just want to hang out. Okay, go for it. Rainy day in Santa Barbara, Los Angeles. I know it is on the East Coast in Florida. Hope everybody's safe out there, especially our friend Cheryl Furstein at East West Media and an old friend of Billy Vera, our special guest today. Billy, we were talking about, let me just tell you before we go back to Dolly Parton and the story you're about to tell. We just brought you back from break with Hopeless Romantic by Billy Vera. And I really like that song, Billy. I hadn't heard that one before. I really like that.
Jerry Wexler produced that this was after Atlantic. I was on another label. This is 1989. Was it 89? No, 81. What am I talking about? And Jerry said, I want to take you down to Muscle Shoals, Alabama, to record you down there with those guys. Because I had recorded them in my Atlantic days. So to the day Jerry died, he said that was one of the 5 greatest records he ever produced. And this is a guy that produced Ray Charles, Aretha Franklin, Bob Dylan. And he said that I'm telling you, to the day he died, he'd tell anybody that asked or even didn't ask that Hopeless Romantic was one of the 5 greatest records that he ever made.
Really, really like the song. Really do.
He was a great producer.
Tell us that you're a great singer and songwriter. Tell us about Dolly Parton, the story you're about to tell.
All right, I'll try to tell it as quickly as I can. I was in one of the bottom parts of my career. I was playing the Ramada Inn in New Jersey, and in those, if you play those gigs, they were like 2-week gigs, and you're playing to 3 people during the week. So one of those weekdays, this fellow comes in with his wife, and the waitress said he'd like to have a word with me. And he introduced himself. Hi, I'm L. Russell Brown. I wrote Tie a Yellow Ribbon Around the Old Oak Tree. He says, you know, Vera, he says, you're a great singer. You're a great songwriter. Everybody knows how great you are. He says, but you never make any money. He says, me, I make a lot of money, and nobody respects me the way they respect you. He said, I had an idea while you were up there singing. He said, maybe we could write together and you could teach me how to get respect and I could teach you how to make money. So I started to go over to his house all the time, and we wrote good songs and some not so good songs. So anyway, one day he gets a job producing Nancy Sinatra. He said, I got to go pick up my wife at the beauty parlor. He said, start something for Nancy. We'll finish it when I get back. So I'm thinking, what do I write for Nancy Sinatra? You know, oh, she has this famous father. And I'm putting in lines like, I love my daddy, but it really don't matter what my daddy might say.
Oh, yeah, that's a good line.
And I finished the song in like 20 minutes. By the time he got back, it was done. And I played it for him. He said, oh my God, I love it. I'm going to play it for Nancy. So he did. A couple of days later, she hated it. And so he says, you got to do something with this song, man. He said, you got to prove me right, prove her wrong. So I had a buddy who had a little band up in Connecticut, and he had a girl singer. So we recorded it with her. And everywhere we took the record, love the song, hate the girl. Love the song, hate the girl. Last guy on my list, love the song, hate the girl, but we're recording Dolly next week. Give me the song for Dolly. You bet, you can have it. He said, I'll guarantee it'll be the single. And it was, and it went to #1.
Congratulations. It's a great song. And I do love that line. That line sticks out for sure. When I was listening to the song, I love it. I love the way she sings it. Well, it ended up where it should, I guess, there, huh?
Dolly
We
did
got
a
to
great
take
job.
another break, Billy, real quick, and then we're going to come back. But because we're running out of time, I'm not going to be able to get to your film career, your acting career. I love the Doors, the scene that the manager that you play right before they caused the riot I love that scene. Oh man, we just can't get to all of it today. So I'm gonna have to come back when you'll have to come back one more time at least if I can.
We'll do a full
big check.
We'll do a full week next time.
Yeah, let's do a full week and let's talk about film and all the great television shows. I'm going to mention them before we leave. I don't care if Richard will cut me off, but I'll keep talking. But let's go to break real quick, and then we're going to come back. We're going to take you to break with one of my favorites from my memories growing up with my parents. They just loved Bonnie Raitt and this album. And this song was one of the just so much fun to listen to. I have good memories. Papa Come Quickly, Jody and Chico, Bonnie Raitt. You got a quick sentence to set that up?
Sure.
Sorry, short.
Bonnie had just made the first really, truly big record of her career, Nick of Time. After 15 albums that didn't sell very well for Warner Brothers, she goes to Capitol. She calls me up and she says, I don't write very much. I'm desperate. I need songs for this follow-up album. You got anything? So I was going to send her some ballads because I love the way she sings ballads. Mm-hmm. And my friend was eavesdropping on a phone call between me and him. His wife was eavesdropping. And she said, tell him to send that little Cajun song. I said, I don't know if it's good for Bonnie. But she said, so stick it on the end of the tape. So I did. Of course, that's the one she picked because I guess she needed an up-tempo song. And the album did about 6 million records, So we did pretty well with that one. Mm. And I got to play guitar on the record.
Well, I can see why people opened the door for you everywhere you went. The hit maker. Okay, so I'm going to mention this. You played the Miami promoter in the Oliver Stone film The Doors, which is an incredible film, one of my favorites. And that was that was one of my favorite scenes. I didn't realize it was you until I looked it up on IMDb today to see what role you played in The Doors, and I'm like, oh my God, now I recognize him. So many great TV shows. Late for Dinner, Soap Opera, Days of Our Lives, The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai. They mentioned Family Ties, which was, again, when I was a kid, one of my favorite shows. In 1985, our producer from the television show Family Ties was in the audience at one of your shows and heard you play At This Moment. The song was subsequently featured in 1985 as a backdrop for romantic interludes between the lead characters Alex P. Keaton, Michael J. Fox, and his girlfriend, Ellen, which is Tracy Pullen, which is now his wife, and has been his wife his whole life. I wondered, just answer yes or no if you know this question, because they wed in real life as well. Do you know if they played your song at their wedding?
I hope not, because it's just too sad.
I
But
bet.
he was on Jimmy Fallon, and of course the band played At This Moment to bring him on. And he said, everywhere I go, they play that song. If Tracy and I go into a club or where there's a band, they play At This Moment. He said, it's a great song, but I'm really sick of hearing it.
I bet, Billy, that it was played at their wedding. It had to have been. All right.
People
So
ask me, but I won't do it at a wedding because it's a sad song. It's about a break.
it is. It is.
Hopeless Romantic could be great for a wedding.
That's good. That's good. Okay. So Billy Vera, BillyVera.com. Check him out. You can find out what he's doing. We're going to talk. We've got a few more minutes left, and we need to hear about the documentary and the autobiography and the Stand By Me, your friendship, your long friendship. We're going to have to do that all in our closing segment. So I'm going to shut up now. I'm going to say goodbye, but stay with us. We're about to premiere Billy Vera's new single at the end of the show here, Stand By Me. Be right back. We got to get you to talk a little bit about how. Okay, well, let's talk about the document, give it the right time. How much time do I have for radio? I want to make sure we don't have to cut anything for radio. Okay, no, I know we got enough time. I mean, how much time am I over? I guess I should have said. 56:41. Okay. So I gotta, yes, sir. Welcome back to the Jeremiah Show. Spending the hour listening to some great music by our special guest today, Billy Vera. Songs that he's written with artists, songs that he has performed and sings himself. Tell me, if you could, Billy, about Larry Chance.
Well, Larry and I, Larry Chance, of course, was the lead singer of the Earls. Remember that. And I met him in 1962 at a club we both played at, and we've been friends ever since. So last year, I got a gig at my old high school, and they had me do a radio interview with this really lame disc jockey. And he was going to be the MC. And I said, oh my God, I can't have this guy MC me. I'll call up Larry. Maybe if he's not working, he'll do it. And of course he did. And so he gave me this beautiful flowery introduction. And then at the end of my show, I bring Larry out and we do an impromptu version of Stand By Me, the old Benny King hit. And we got a standing ovation.
So what day was this? I'm sorry, I missed that part.
Last June. Last June.
Okay.
Yeah. So a couple of days later, he calls me up. He said, I got a track on Stand By Me. How'd you feel about putting your voice on? I said, well, yeah, if it's not too much like Benny's record, that's one of the greatest records ever made.
Yeah.
So I said, send me the track. Well, he sends me the track and it was like Count Basie, man. I mean, it was just an awesome arrangement. So I put my voice on. Larry, I sent it back to Larry. He put it together, puts out the record, and all of a sudden we're getting jazz stations playing it. Down in the Carolinas, I mean, every station down there is playing the record. It's like getting all this press and everything. It's really exciting what's going on with this record.
Are you reaching a new generation that doesn't know the history and all the
Well, everybody knows "Stand by Me." I mean, because it's just one of those.
maybe the younger kids though, are they embracing it as well? And
yeah. I played it for Mike Stoller, one of the guys that wrote the song, and he loves it. You know, he says, I got a girl at my publishing company. Her one job is to get our songs in movies, TV shows, and commercials. He said, I'm going to really lean on her to do that. So, I mean, if that happens, we could really make some money off of this thing.
Yeah.
So, and I love the record, and you know, I like a lot of my own records, but I just really, really love it, you know. So
where can we find it, Billy? Where can we?
On anything, whether Apple or
Everywhere.
whether Spotify or any of those streaming things. Yeah.
All those streaming platforms out there. There's a lot of them. And then the documentary, you know, follows your life as from Harlem to Hollywood.
Yeah. Dolly's in there, Dionne Warwick's in there, Richard Roundtree, my old homie from back in New York, Tim Hauser, the late Tim Hauser from Manhattan Transfer is in there.
What was it like?
Cool people.
Yeah, not only writing the memoir, but then putting this into a documentary, and having that, you know, spending that time with people that you've spent a lifetime with, and that but them celebrating you and reflecting on your life at this point. What's that feel like?
It really felt good. You know, at first I said, you know, am I worthy of a documentary? Am I a big enough name? And because I remember I got a lot of resistance when people were bugging me to do, the fans were bugging me to write the book. And but like we took it to book agents, and they said, you're not a big enough name to be worthy of a book, you know. So I just did it myself, and then we finally got a publisher, and the thing's done fairly well, you know, and everybody that reads it just loves it, and that led to me being asked to write other books. I wrote a history of a record company called Specialty Records that had Little Richard, Sam Cooke, Lloyd Price, all these great people. Yeah. And in fact, the guy that owned the company, Art Roop, lived out his final of his 104 years in Santa Barbara. I would go up to see him. I went when he had a birthday. You know, he was kind of my boss up there, and he just died this past year at 104.
Wow!
Discovered all those great artists.
I think music helps you live a little longer if you do it right. Yeah.
And he loved music to his dying day. He was losing his hearing, you know, in the last few years, but he would go when COVID came, and he was an old man by this time. And his doctor said, "Don't go out, you know, you're too old." So he ended up spending most of his days on YouTube listening to music.
Well, I just watched the Chris Wallace interview with Clive Davis last night, and I think he's 90 at the point of the interview. Which is a few months ago, and he said, "Yeah, I'm not retiring, and I just love music too much. I just have to be involved and listen, and it fuels me. It keeps me young." So
it's like George Burns' famous line: "Retire to what?"
Well, okay, so I would definitely want everybody out there. Do you want to tease in the autobiography? What's something? Give me something in there that people just don't know or might find out. You don't have to tell us what they're going to find out, but give us a tease on the book, on picking up a copy. What are we going to learn, Billy?
Well, I didn't want to put in any salacious stuff. You know, I remember I was friendly with Angie Dickinson, you know, the movie star.
Yep. She's
the one that got me my star on Hollywood Walk of Fame. And
you're in a photo with her, aren't you? If I remember.
Yeah.
I'll put that up on Facebook so everybody can see it.
Okay. Well, they asked her to write a book. They offered her $2 million to write her book, but they wanted her to write who she slept with, who she dated. And she said, it's not worth the money to do that. You know, people that don't have any class do that.
Yeah.
You know, so I didn't want to get funky.
Well, you can read a lot of other great stories, and there's so much to your life. You've been involved in so many of our favorite hits and songs that bring back memories of my life, and so many countless others out there would agree with that. So thank you, Billy. I'd like, if you've done, I'm sure you have done so many radio shows. I was thinking about you today. I'm like, poor guy probably really doesn't want to do this show, but you're here and you're doing it, and you bring yourself and your personality to it, and I really respect you and appreciate that you did that today with me.
Glad. Well, I believe in doing them. You know, and I'm at the age now. I'm 78, and I'm getting calls to do them almost one a week now.
That's great.
You know? So, you know, I know how to do them. You know, I mean, you're a good interviewer, but everybody isn't. And so what do you do when that happens? You end up having to interview yourself.
You have to fill in all the blank spots.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I really appreciate your compliment. What I wanted to ask you is, could you set up this song? Have you ever been asked to DJ or, like, you know, really put out records and songs on air?
That's another thing I do. I have a DJ show every Saturday.
Oh, what?
On KSTS in San Diego. Yeah. Jazz88.org every Saturday.
You're the host?
Yeah. I play old what they call jump blues. You know, like it's like R&B and jazz from the 40s to the pre-rock and roll 50s. That's what they wanted. So I'm on there every week, and all the shows are archived. So
you can listen to it. You go back on a podcast, or
no, this is on radio, a regular radio station.
Right, but we can find your shows, past shows, all archived.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and it's on all over the world, wherever. I mean, you can hear it all anywhere in the world.
Well, could you do me a favor and announce your new single for us? Can you set it up, and then we're going to play it, and I'm going to say goodbye. And thank you so much, Billy. It's been a real.
Thank you for having me, Jeremiah.
But
right now, we're going to bring you Larry Chance and Billy Vera singing their brand new hit recording of the old classic standard by Benny King, Stand By Me.
Good. We'll cut there. Can you do me one more favor, Billy, and do that again, but say, hey, this is Billy Vera. We'll do a radio drop, and I'm going to put this in through Christmas. I'd love to sell your book as a stocking stuffer, right, for all our listeners, and I'll promote it on a list. And then the show maybe in December, if you want to promote that.
Sure.
Yeah, do a little promo. We'll run this as an ad, basically, or a drop for the next 2 months, and every show, and we'll sell some books and docs. Okay. Richard, do you want to count them down, or do you want me to do that, Richard?
You go ahead and count them down. I'm still recording.
Okay, I'm going to play Richard right now. See if I can do it. 3, 2, 1.
Hi, everybody. I'm Billy Vera, and I'm here to tell you about my memoir. My memoir is called Harlem to Hollywood, and it's available at Amazon and just about anywhere great books or even lousy books are sold. But mine's a good one, and I think you'll enjoy it.
And you're listening to the Jeremiah Show. I forgot to tell you to do that for that part. See, I'm not a very good Richard.
It's all right.
Yeah, you can just say, and you're listening to the Jeremiah Show. He'll put it all together.
Okay. You're listening to the Jeremiah Show.
I stepped on you. I'm sorry. 3, 2, 1.
You're listening to the Jeremiah Show.
Appreciate you. Thank you, Billy.
Sure. Thanks for having me, man.
I'll send this to you soon.